Hello everyone and welcome back. Whenever we left off with the last video, we had just glued the edge strips to make the little lips onto the front and back edge of our kitchen tray. And so now we are going to proceed by taking those out of the clamps. They should have been in the clamps for an hour. And then we will take our woodworking biscuits along with the 4 slats that make up the tray itself, and we will glue those together in this video. You will need your Titebond 3 wood glue, you will need a damp rag, you will need some wax paper, and we will need the 2 12-inch clamps that we used previously to glue those edge strips on. Now we are going to glue up the 4 aromatic cedar pieces that make up the bottom of the tray, edge to edge, so that we'll have a tray that's the full width front to back. To do this, we need to carefully lay out our pieces. And again, we had talked about how you have an A joint, a B joint, and a C joint. And so we need to make sure that we have our pieces in order so that I'm lining up my B joint with my B joint, and the arrows need to be facing up. And then I had previously glued up the 2 edge pieces, the front edge and the back, with those little strips on each side. So we will remove the clamps. And this is the formation of our tray. And again, I've got the C to the C and my A joint to my A joint. Now, the pieces that I'm working with will look a little bit different than the pieces that you have in your kit. For one, I had made a mistake with my biscuit joint slots in the original rendition of this, and so you'll notice that I actually have biscuits that are already in those joints. And then I let the glue dry, I cleaned the joints back up, and I re-slotted my boards. So your pieces will not have this additional piece of wood in that slot. But no matter, it glues up the same way as it is. We will take our board, we're going to turn our boards on edge, and we're going to focus on one joint at a time. So I'll move those parts out of the way real quick. We'll get some wax paper here. I should have made that piece a little bit longer. And I will turn the wax paper over so that the edges want to curl downward, and we'll let gravity be our friend with that. Bring our boards back over. Now, one thing I did not mention whenever I was talking about what you would need for this is a brush. You can use your finger. It's hard to get glue down in those biscuit slots. You can actually squeeze a little bit of glue in there, but it's hard to get just the right amount. So it is helpful to have one of these craft paintbrushes. Now, using biscuits and this edge gluing, it will tend to get a little bit messy, and so we will want to have a damp rag on hand to clean up excess glue. Paper towels are fine, but it needs to be damp. And so we'll set that there and have it available. We'll have our Titebond 3 wood glue. We'll open that up. So now again, I want to focus on joint A. I'm gonna have 3 of my biscuits ready, and all of my biscuits are right here. I'm going to apply a little bit of glue in my biscuit slots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then I'm gonna apply bead of glue on one of the boards, and that will be enough glue work with. Now I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to dip down into the biscuit slot. I'm going to wipe that glue around. 1, 2, 3. Sometimes it's helpful to actually count out loud so you can keep up with what you've done. 5 and 6. And now I'm going to spread glue on this edge. And we want to cover the entire edge of each of the boards with glue. Now we're going to take our biscuits and we're going to put them and center them in the slot. There is some wiggle room, so it doesn't have to be dead perfect. Some of the biscuits will be a little bit tighter than others, and that's okay. And then you want to seat the second board on top of first board, and you want to push the ends so that they're fairly close together and smooth. The longer these sit there, the more that glue will have time to cure and set, and so the more you can straighten things up as you go, the better off you are. I want to close the lid to the glue, set it aside, and we will now put our biscuits in here. The last 3 biscuits. Center them as best you can in each of the slots. And then we're going to register these parts. Line up our edges. Be very careful whenever you're pushing these together. You're putting pressure down on it that you don't pinch your finger or someone else's finger that's assisting you. And your 2 tray edges should be up. Everything had been positioned upward. And now what we want to do is actually take our clamp. We're gonna widen it out to the width here, as wide as we can. We're actually gonna lift our tray up and set this clamp underneath it. And then you'll have to kind of lift the clamp up, and you want the clamp, the center of your 2 clamp heads to be not only in line this way, so I need to move this one down just a little bit, but the center this way needs to be on those boards so that they don't curl up. And we're going to put a little bit of pressure on it, and you should see a little bit of squeeze out right there. We'll open up our second clamp and put it under, and we will repeat that process of glue. Okay, and now we're going to take our rag and we want to wipe any excess glue that we can off of our board. Makes it easier to clean up later. Now we will set our tray aside and allow it to dry for at least an hour before we take it out of clamps. One thing I do want to talk about fairly quickly is whenever you clamp your boards together, you'll notice that based on how you position your clamp, that will sometimes dictate the cupping or buckling pressure that your boards experience. For example, if I put my clamps in one position, you'll see that as I tighten up, the board actually starts to bow or cup. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want to glue my boards up in a cupped fashion. Now they will tend to relax whenever we remove the clamps, but I want to work with and adjust my clamps such that I'm pushing it in a straight line. And so what I've discovered, for example, on these clamps, you know, a minute ago I said to go ahead and glue it in the center line. Be sure that the tips, or for me, this may be a little bit different for you, but I put the tips of my clamp directly in line with the board itself, and that helps to bring this back straight. There's still a little bit of a bow in there, but we want this to be as straight as possible. So if you notice that your boards glued together under clamp pressure tend to have a swag or a cup, work to adjust the clamps. Maybe even you can change the side that the clamp is on to try to get this as straight as possible during your glue up.